Hey, Uncle Stoney, my guard dog has started doing guard dog stuff and I'm not sure how I feel about it. So we are out with Barney. Barney, come on buddy, is about a 5.5-month-old Giant Schnauzer, and he was bought to be a family guard dog. Okay. Now, when I say family guard dog, I don't mean he was bought to be able to, ride around the car and let out and sick on people and go in a building and find them and chase them or do some type of bite sport. He was just simply bought to live on a farm and provide a certain level of security for his family in case somebody was to come on the farm that, meant to do them harm or meant to steal some of their property. Okay. Now, here's the thing. When people buy dogs like this, or back there in the background, you can hear a Bulgarian Karachikhan barking, okay, and he's here for the same reason. People buy these guard dogs, and then when the guard dogs start acting like guard dogs, they're like, well, I don't know why he's doing that, okay? Because from the owner's perspective, the guy with the weed eater is just there to weed eat, okay? So we have a guy with a weed eater right here, right now. Brock is a kid that works for me. Brock's just gonna kind of go over here in front of us with the weed eater, and he's gonna start weed eating. And it might make this dog a little nervous. It might make this dog growl. It might, cause all kinds of reactions. You can see he's kind of sniffing the air as Brock goes by. And from this dog's perspective, it's just some random guy showed up with a big long stick. And random guys showing up on your farm with big sticks since time immemorial has been a bad thing. So Brock, you can kind of turn that on every so often. So what our job is to help these guard dogs understand who needs to be barked at and who doesn't need to be barked at. Who needs to be chased off the property and who doesn't need to be chased off the property. And they have to kind of start to understand that there is a lot of situations where their natural instinct is going to tell them to be skeptical, but they can't act on that instinct. Come on, nerd. Very nice. The basic idea here, if we're having a problem with a dog that doesn't have a well-defined understanding of what constitutes normal or abnormal behavior, is we have to kind of re-educate them. Okay. Now, if it's a puppy, from a puppy's perspective, we're just educating them as we go. Okay. So Barney was here, and he's been around a lot of weed eaters, he's been around a lot of tractors, he's been around a lot of farm work. But what's different today is that Brock's here, and he hasn't ever been around Brock. So a little bit, the weed eater and that noise makes him a little bit nervous, but the fact that the weed eater is being wielded by a new person, that doubles down on his nervousness, okay? So instead of fussing at him when he barks at Brock or when he growls at Brock, I just take and start doing a familiar pattern, and a pattern that I know he's going to be successful with, right? So when we're working the Exercise with Small Challenges course and we're working on developing our physical skills, we're working on developing our vocabulary, I know Barney has a pretty good mastery of that for his age, right? So I'm putting him in a situation where he's very confident that he can do what I need him to do. And then all I'm doing is adding these things that make him nervous, okay? That's called pattern overlayment. I take something that makes a dog nervous and I gradually desensitize them to it within a pattern where I know that they can have success. It really works super well. What doesn't work very well is trying to take something that bothers a dog and then make a training session about that thing. So Barney's owner, when Barney would get a little bit nervous, when Barney would display some behavior that wasn't exactly appropriate, should put him on a leash. And then now you have the lady's nervous that owns Barney, the dog's nervous, the person holding the weed eater's nervous, because it's very awkward. It's not like real life, okay? In real life, you're going to be out with your dog, and the guy on the weed eater, he's just thinking about getting done weed eating so he can grab a beer and a slice of pizza after work, right? So I'm not going to ask the guy with the weed eater to make a big deal out of this training session with my dog, and I'm not going to ask my dog to make a big deal out of the guy with the weed eater, because that works against what I need to have happen. What I need to have happen is for the dog to understand that when we go out into real life, come on Barney, that we have things to do, and that stuff's going to get done no matter what, and all the dog has to do is take his emotional cues from me. So if I don't look nervous, then there's no reason for the dog to look nervous, right? And so I don't feel nervous when Brock is weed eating around me. He comes out here and weed eats every week, Okay? And I want to provide the emotional leadership that helps this dog be calm, confident, and polite. Okay? And now we'll do the weed eater for a while, and then we'll jump on that bicycle for a second, Brock. And then we'll just switch things. We'll move on to a bicycle, okay? Because dogs, they get a little bit nervous about weed eaters. They get nervous about a lot of things, okay? And so now, not only do I know, come on there. Not only do I know that Barney's going to be around a lot of people doing landscaping work where he lives, he also is going to be expected to be able to go to social functions where there's a lot of kids, right? So Barney's owners, they have children in that 12, 13-year-old range, which means that a lot of their brothers and a lot of their friends have little brothers and sisters that are anywhere from 2 to 10 years old. And those kids, they're riding electric unicycles around, they're riding skateboards around and scooters and bicycles around, and all that hectic noise and hectic motion, that can make a guard dog nervous if they haven't been exposed to it before. And you see right there, as Brock came by, I don't know if you can hear it on the TV, but like the brakes are squeaking a little bit, and then the way that bike moves, it's got a big shock in the middle of it, and when you're riding it slow like that, it kind of is herky-jerky. Okay? And all of those motions, they cause a primal response in the dog. Okay? From the dog's perspective, if there's someone behind him or beside him or walking up behind his owner and that's herky-jerky, that's probably bad news. And I don't want the dog to even think that that's not necessarily bad news, but I want him to understand the different types of erratic behavior. Okay? Because there's most certainly a difference between a high school kid riding a bicycle herky-jerky and a crackhead coming up behind you with a tire iron herky-jerky. Does that make sense? And the only way to really make sure the dog understands is to put them in those situations. We call that scenario training, and then reward them for appropriate behaviors and you know, kind of model the type of emotional response that you would like to see. A lot of times people think, come on, nerd. You can take a dog like this Giant Schnauzer, and if they have the wrong emotional response to a situation, you can correct that misbehavior out of them. Like right now, if he was to start barking at Brock, or he was to kind of growl at Brock or something, you might think that I would correct him like from a traditional basic obedience standpoint. But then what I'm doing is I'm presenting the dog with a situation where he senses negativity in front of him, or behind him, wherever the threat may be, and he senses negativity coming from me, the handler, so he's kind of caught in the middle of a continuum of negativity on both sides. Okay, so that's a big mistake people make with these dogs, and I think that's happening with Barney a little bit, where like his owner's worried about him having some type of misplaced aggression. Okay, so she's putting him on the leash, but then the tension is coming from her body all the way down to the leash, and she's making a big deal out of introducing him to you know, kind of new and novel situations. Not me. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put him around stuff that worries him, and then I'm going to let him look towards me to figure out the right emotional response. So basically, I want him to start to understand that if he gets worried or he gets nervous about a situation, all he has to do is take his emotional cues from me. If I look nervous, if I look like I'm freaking out, then yeah, we're going to battle. But if I look calm and I look like everything's normal, then no, we're just going to chill out and probably make a new friend. Okay. Now the last thing that I'm going to show you, come here, very nice, is something that I think is really important, and I think is an underplayed part in dog training, which is just handing your leash to other people, right? So you're not going to run into a whole lot of people in your life that want to get out and spend a lot of actual labor training your dog, or they want to take the time necessary to learn the nuances of influencing your dog. But it's really not that hard to ask somebody in your life to hold your dog and you walk away. See, so I'm taking that dog's sense of security, which is me. I'm taking his sense of emotional guidance, which is me. I'm taking it kind of away, but I'm still where he can see me maintaining a calm, confident demeanor. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to reward him, and I'm going to ask Brock to take a step just a little bit closer to him. Okay? Now Brock in this situation is the giving tree. So when you're recruiting people to help you, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to know anything about dogs. And I'm not asking Brock to hand the dog treats, and I'm not asking Brock to pet on the dog, because he doesn't really have that skill set. If Brock was to go to hand this dog a treat, it's just as likely that the way his hand motion goes towards the dog is going to make the dog nervous. I mean, just imagine yourself, if you were out at the park and some guy came up and just, you know, stuck a Twinkie in your mouth, it might not be all that positive, right? There's a little bit of skill required to present a treat properly, especially to a guard dog, a nervous dog, a dog that's fearful. And let's not lie, guard dogs are fearful. That's what makes them guard dogs. Dog cannot be courageous if they're not a little bit fearful. Now take a little bit of a step closer to him, Brock. Now this is what we call, again, desensitization via progressive exposure. Just for the whole time that that dog's going to be with me this next few days, Brock's going to hold his leash more, and Brock is going to do more weed eating around him, and Brock's going to do more tractor work around him, and he's just going to kind of get used to seeing Brock in the environment, and he's going to get used to like having a connection to Brock. Now this leash is a physical connection, but I'm going to eventually transfer that to an emotional connection, because the dog's going to realize that proximity to Brock is not a bad thing. It's actually a pretty good thing, right? Okay, you're going to get just a little closer to him, Brock. Very nice. Okay, and that went better than I expected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Brock give him one reward. Okay, so Brock, what I want you to do is I'm going to take his leash. This is called a leash transfer. And then I'm going to give you a treat, and I just want you to present that treat just in a really casual way and see if he takes it. Don't reach over his head. There you go. Very nice. Okay, all right, I'll see you later, Brock. And you just go away. Now, what experience did this dog just have? He just had a whole series of experiences where he had to display good basic obedience, right? And he had to display a relatively decent social attitude towards something that kind of scared him. He was scared of Brock. Let's not lie. He was scared of Brock when Brock had the weed eater, and he was scared of Brock when Brock is riding behind him with the bicycle. That fear is what makes him want to guard. That fear is what makes him think he needs to protect us. That is what makes a guard dog. Okay, so I know you guys like to you know, put these noble like qualities on a guard dog, but the truth is that for a dog or a person to be courageous, they have to be scared first. So you understand that these guard dogs, they're scared. And our job is to make them scared of as few things as possible so that we can refine what causes them to resort to threat displays or actual violence, okay? Because a guard dog isn't any good if it's guarding us against stuff that we don't need to be guarded against. Remember, we are always trying to maximize deterrence value and minimize liability, and that's what we're going to be doing all week with this dog. All right, I'll see you guys later.